The learning sequence alternates between teacher-managed activities and activities scaffolded by the learning material. Before reading the unfamiliar text, the teacher has to manage a brief discussion with the class about the relevant genre, strategies for reading the text, and a couple of relevant concepts relating to the text. Next, students will read the text using the supportive features in the learning material. The same text is presented in 3 different versions with successively less scaffolding for decoding. The teacher has to set up the learning material based on her knowledge of students' decoding skills. Only the poorest decoders should have access to the C version of the text. In version C, the student listens to the text being read aloud by the text-to-speech to give him an initial comprehension of the text. Each word is highlighted as the text is read aloud in order to give the student exposure to the orthographic material.
Det efterår. Freja og hendes mor.
Next, the student has to click on and thereby identify specific written words to check if he really was paying attention to the orthographic representation.
Avisen. Svaret korrekt.
The student then moves on to version B of the same text, which all students must read. In the B and A version of the text, the student reads independently until he encounters a word that he is unable to decode or unsure if he decoded correctly. In the B version, all words are placed in one of 5 categories. The student has to look below the word to the colored box to see which category the word belongs to. The color shows the student which kind of support, if any, he can get for decoding the word. Only the first occurrence of a word on a page can be read aloud using text-to-speech. On the second occurrence of a word, a gray-colored box signifies that the student has already either read the word independently or has attempted to read it on a previous occasion, perhaps using a supportive feature.
Du har allerede haft dette ord.
The voice says, "You had this word previously." Words marked with a green box cannot be read aloud immediately. This category consists of 102 of the 120 most frequently used words in the Danish language. The remaining 18 of the 120 most frequently used words consist of rhymes and are therefore placed in the yellow category. The 102 words are for the most part short but highly irregular. The low correlation to the phonological code means that a connection from orthography to meaning has to be strengthened from thorough student exposure to the visual representation of the word. Hence, if the student cannot read a green word independently, he has to remember how it is spelled, pick out the word in a pop-up box containing the target, as well as other words in the green category.
På.
When clicked, the target is read aloud by text-to-speech. That gives the student at least 2 exposures to the orthographic representation and a pronunciation, allowing him to identify the meaning of the word. The teacher can fade the scaffolding by selecting which green words the individual student can read independently and therefore does not need support for. The words with the yellow box are words from unset rhyme families. The student cannot have the target word read aloud using text-to-speech.
Sej.
Instead, the student gets a cue through a written keyword that rhymes with the target word. The student will have to transfer the rhyme from the analogous word to the target. The student can have the cue word read aloud with text-to-speech if he cannot decode it independently. By using rhyme analogy and substitution of 1 or 2 consonant sounds, the student decodes the target word and gets 3 exposures to the rhyme. Multisyllabic words that do not fall into one of the other categories and that consist of regular and or frequent word parts are marked with blue boxes. The student must initially try to read the word independently and, if unsuccessful, try to read the word using the syllables and/or morphemes. The student thus identifies and gets exposure to the relevant word parts. As a last option, students can access text-to-speech by clicking once more.
Efterår.
Words marked by a red box either are infrequent words or consist of infrequent word parts and/or word parts with irregular neighbors. If the student cannot read one of these words, he can access text-to-speech directly.
Hendes.
This serves to control frustration and lessens demands to control vocabulary in the texts. Also in this category are a few words in which each letter represents its most common sound, which should be easy for the student to read. Therefore, no further support is necessary for these words. This mix of hard and easy words might encourage students to try to read words in the red category independently before activating text-to-speech. During this activity, the teacher observes the students' interaction with the learning material and reminds the students to always attempt decoding on every word and to use the support whenever they need it. After reading the text, the student is presented with a multiple choice task checking comprehension. This is followed by a writing activity of some sort. Next, the teacher manages a discussion of various orthographic features and words. Instead of teaching students phonics rules or features that they have to apply deductively, the discussion can be based on students' experiences with trying to decode the text. The students can practice further on reading the text as homework. The scaffolding allows students to practice independently. The following lesson, students perform a guided oral reading in pairs or to the teacher in the end of the learning sequence using version A of the text. In this third version of the text, the scaffold is faded. There's no visible support for the student, but when clicked, a few of the most difficult words can be read aloud using text-to-speech.
Efterår.
The student is led to try to read the text without support and only use support on a few difficult words. The student can go back to version B if he needs further support for decoding. Finally, the teacher manages a discussion with the class about the meaning of the text.